The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Are you interested in a career in the nuclear industry? Today, we are covering the topic of localization and job creation through a nuclear build. I'm Nicolette Pomper van Zyl, the editor of ESI Africa and your moderator for this session, hosted in collaboration with the Nuclear Industry Association of South Africa. It's my pleasure to introduce the panel who are with us today: GP Sanswere, the Deputy President of NIASA; Meta Mashalari, the Chairperson of the Black Energy Professionals Association; Molagadi Kakana, the Vice President of the Women in Nuclear South Africa; Israel Sakoko, the Executive Chairperson of the South African Young Nuclear Professional Society; Nhlanhla Mpalala, the Chairman of the Power and Nuclear Energy Group at the Black Business Council. And joining us a bit later will be Des Miller, the Director of New Energy Developments. Listeners, note that this is an interactive session, so please send your comments and questions through to the panel using the live discussion panel on the right-hand side of your screen. Please go there now and say hello to us so that we know you are there. In the live discussion panel, we also have added a poll question we'd like you to please respond to, which you can do so now already. So please click on the poll, open it up, and give us your response to that particular question. The question we are asking you is, would you advise the youth to explore a career in the nuclear industry? Please click on one of the responses. Thanks, everyone. So right now, let's kick off with the discussion. And I want to ask GP to start off, as I know he's been in the nuclear industry since he was a youth himself. So why did you become a nuclear scientist, GP? And in your opinion, what does the future hold for job creation in the sector in South Africa? Over to you, GP.
Thank you, Nicolette, and also thank you to all the panelists and all the members out there who come to the last part of our session as NIASA. Well, I will tell you that I joined nuclear industry when it was exciting. I remember very well, vividly, when I was at the university. We had a presentation by Professor Katashai, who was leading one of the program in Northwest University Mafeking campus, which was called the Center for Applied Radiation Science and Technology. So what happened is that he was presenting, talking about the development of the PBMR, if those who still remember, because it started in 1998. So it was in 2003 when I was doing my final year BSc. So when I saw that, I saw an opportunity whereby the nuclear industry was exciting, you know, talking about fusion, fission, and all those other things, and also talking about how this thing, the nuclear science and technology, can be applied in so many different things, starting from power generation, nuclear medicine, agriculture, industrial application through non-destructive testing methods, and so forth. So it was quite exciting for a young man like me back in those days. I don't know if I'm still young. And then what happened is that I enrolled through the program, and that's how I became a part of the nuclear industry. It was exciting because we were having an opportunity to do some of the exciting research programs at NIASA. You know, I ended up myself in Cape Town at Itemba Labs, which is the laboratory for accelerator-based science, where I did my MSc research program there, which was very, very exciting until I joined the industry now as I work for NIASA as a nuclear physicist. I still believe that the nuclear industry is going to play a very critical role in the economy in terms of one, nuclear medicine. You know that there's got quite a lot of cases where we talk about cancer. You know, a lot of people, especially in Africa, they have got issues of cancer, cardiovascular disease, and so forth. And then we had Zika and so forth. So I still believe that the application of nuclear science and technology will play a critical role. I mean, if you see that a lot of African countries now are going nuclear, they want to have their own programs and so forth. So I can tell you that we still need young professionals to come into the nuclear industry, to join the nuclear industry. If you go right at Quebec and look at the trajectory in terms of the age, you will see that a lot of staff have aged, and then some of them or most of them are exiting the nuclear industry. So we need to come and develop new ones. And we also see at NIASA, there's quite a lot of a large number of people who are sort of retiring very soon. So we need to do that. And then we've noticed that in the last couple of series, we've spoken about quite a lot of programs. One, the 2,500 megawatt that the government is going through, the multi-purpose research reactor that NIASA is embarking on, the central interim storage facility that NRAD is embarking on, the resurrection of PBMR, and then also the retrofitting of the coal power station in Mpumalanga, where now nuclear, in terms of small modular reactor, can play a critical role. So I definitely say the future is bright for the nuclear industry, and we need to encourage young people to be part of it. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you so much, GP. And it's true what you say. We do need the youth to be looking at this industry and other industries. Listeners, just a reminder to use the live discussion box on the right-hand side of your screen to interact with the panel who are online to answer any of your questions. And we also welcome your comments that you want to send through. I'd now like to hand over to Meta, who is going to give us some insight as well. Over to you, Meta.
Thank you very much for inviting me and for discussing this wonderful opportunity in terms of the nuclear build program in South Africa. As we all know, it was very disappointing from a South African perspective, whereby we were looking forward to the 9,600 megawatts that was supposed to come and happen, and which was supposed to set up a program that was supposed to stimulate localization of a whole lot of items in South Africa. As we all know, nuclear in South Africa is not new. It has been there. Quebec has been there for more than 30 years. And it's actually it's creating one of the cheapest energy sources in the world. And when we are talking about climate change, you are not going to actually achieve any climate change without integration of nuclear. Can I please my slide? I know you are, Nicolette, you're helping with my slides. If we can move to the next slide. And I wanted to say, you know, the energy sector in South Africa, it continues to thrive. And it plays a significant role in growing the economy. But then there is also poor participation of Black professionals, especially at strategic and commercial levels. Nuclear energy is generally perceived as a means of ensuring reliable electricity and assisting in combating the climate change. The nuclear program has largely ensures the required generation of capacity, creating endless planning cycles and limited implementation. The implementation of the nuclear program has vast potential in terms of economic development, localization, and provided that the implementation is done in a proper and effective way. Next slide. And you know, when you're looking at, according to the AFDB, Africa remains a dark continent. But then for us to be able to power Africa, we need to have strategic intent in terms of building proper programs that are going to give us access to affordable, reliable energy. And we need to find a right balance between secure electricity supply in the future and cleaner and more sustainable supply with a cost effectiveness, which is packaged in a manner that can attract the necessary investment. Sustainable energy technologies should include renewable energy sources and energy efficiency, along with nuclear technology. Africa is blessed with an abundance of natural resources. We have hydro in the DRC, and we have gas in Mozambique. We have abundance of renewables everywhere, and we have uranium in South Africa. We need the capital to make sure we take advantage of these natural resources to transition towards a renewable and a low carbon mix supported by transmission infrastructure with clear market rules for cross-border trading. And I don't want to go and go further because I'm just doing a welcoming note. But then what I've seen is the opportunities in terms of the end-to-end of the opportunities in the nuclear industry, from the fuel cycle, from the fuel cycle to the medicine to the whole nuclear village. There was a study which was done by Wally Parsons, and the contribution of the nuclear industry to the GDP, it could be well into it. It's in excess of 200 billion rand. And we need a capacitated state, especially around the DMRE, which is capacitated with people who can make sure that they deliver the program in a manner, in a transparent and from a governance point of view, capacitated with advisors. And we must actually stop the planning. South Africa keeps on planning, keeps on coming up with feasibilities instead of actually implementing programs. And I actually want us the conversation when we're talking about localization to actually focus on how are we ensuring that South Africa moves from a planning phase to a implementation phase. And I would like to end it there.
Thank you so much, Meta. I know you had a few more slides, but I would rather ask a question that has come in, and that is, why do you think the nuclear program has not been implemented to date? Meta.
I believe the nuclear program in South Africa has not been implemented because of political coherence and also, like I mentioned, capacitation of the state. We keep on moving from policy to policy instead of when we have a plan, we actually capacitate the state and we just stick to what has been happening. I think it's very important from the DMRE, all the different stakeholders, National Treasury, the DMRE, NIASA, ESCOM, to all plan together. Currently in South Africa, you have planning that is being done from different spheres. You have ESCOM that plans transmission and supposed to implement. You have NIASA that does research. You have DMRE from a policy side. You have the regulator also regulating themselves into a corner whereby things are not coordinated. So you actually need people to come together and coordinate themselves in such a way whereby if we have decided on something all the way from the
it seems like we are not hearing you, Meta. So unfortunately, I will need to move on, and we can come back to that at a later time. If you can please
there's a
mute
clear
for now.
coordinating team that ensures that
Sorry.
programs in South Africa are
Right. Before we move on, I just like to say hello to the listeners that have just joined. We unfortunately lost Meta's audio there because she's moving around a bit. But welcome to everybody that has joined us. And please have a look at the right-hand side of your screen to the live discussion box. That is your space to communicate with us and to take the poll question that we are asking you. So please do that now and also say hello to us so that we know who you are. So now, Molokadi, I'd like to move on to you. There's many international programs for skills development, but what is our skills inventory and the retention thereof? Molokadi.
Thank you so much, Nicolette. I will be speaking on behalf of women, although it's very important that we have a mix of men and women, but one of our targets at WINSA is women because of the women are few in the industry. Can we move to the next slide, Nicolette? Okay. In terms of the outline for the day, I'm going to talk about WINSA's interest, the international programs, a success story, and then the skills inventory and retention. Next slide, please. Women in Nuclear is an organization that was founded in 2003 to mobilize and support the involvement of women in various nuclear-related fields within South Africa. We are affiliated to WIN Global, which is a global organization of individuals focusing on women working professionally in the various fields of nuclear energy and radiation applications. We are also affiliated to WIN Africa, which was just recently established in September 2020. WINSA promotes skills development and localization, and one of those ways is through identifying and encouraging women to participate in international opportunities for skills development that will build them so that they can realize their full potential and make meaningful contribution in the industry. Next slide, please. There's been several international programs that have been implemented. Can we have the next slide, please? Okay, so some of the programs that we have, like the recent one, the latest one was the Marie Curie Fellowship Program, and we've got a lot of South Africa IEA and AFRA programs that are being continuously implemented, and one of the other ones is the World Nuclear University Summer Institute programs. So these are the programs that we have found that these are limited programs. I just gave a few examples, but there's so many more, and we encourage women to get involved in these programs because it's very important that if you want to localize, you need to be able to have a global fit. So you need to be able to understand what is happening out there. So you cannot only rely on getting knowledge locally, but the idea is that we have to get the global knowledge that's out there and be able to localize it and make sure that we apply it to the benefit of the country and it's applied by us as South Africans. Can we move to the next slide, please? All right. One of the success stories, there were a few success stories that I could think of, but then because of, we have to respect private information, I had to get consent of a story that I can talk about. And this specific story, I liked it so much because of it's not only localization of a skill or knowledge that is acquired abroad, but it's also commercialized. They commercialized and created jobs. So that is very key as well because of today we focus on localization and job creation. So even if one gets a program out there and does not necessarily get employed by the existing organizations, we have to look at opportunities of creating jobs by commercializing the skills that we have acquired. So one of my examples was actually Ramatsina Mela Masango. She's currently a Chief Technology Officer and partner of Mzansi Energy Solutions. We call it Mzesi. So she has acquired her PhD in the US and has been involved in the nuclear industries, and now she has commercialized, she has partnered with other people and commercialized, and there's job creation as well. Can we move to the next slide? Okay, in terms of the skills inventory and retention, it's very necessary that we have local talent so that we do not continuously depend on expatriates or international suppliers. So we need local vendors and we need local talent so that every time it's not like when we have big projects, instead of keeping money to the country so that we can improve the country's performance, we are busy investing in other countries by giving them jobs, by giving them the opportunities. We need to be able to locally do that without using expatriates or international suppliers. So this will also bring solutions to the unemployment challenge that we're currently sitting with. So these international programs are implemented. However, one of the things that we've been asking ourselves is that how do you access this expertise that are available? There is no central inventory where you can automatically just log on and be able to access information and say, okay, fine, I'm looking for a criticality specialist. So if I'm looking for a criticality specialist, let me go to this local inventory and see who has acquired that knowledge from abroad or anywhere else. So one of the things that we are doing as WINSA is that we're creating a database of women. Of course, our focus is on women, but it would be ideal that it can be spread for men, both male and female. So we are creating a database of women that are working in the nuclear industry so that we can know what are the available competencies and where are they. We are obviously doing it for different purposes. One of the ones that we are doing it for is for continuous mentorship, because of if you have to link a mentor to a mentee, you need to know where is the right competencies. Okay, another key consideration is retention of knowledge. I know in some industries, one of the key things that we are busy doing is saying what our knowledge retention strategies so that we can manage the knowledge, because of knowledge the knowledge that I acquire when my organization sends me out to go and get learning, it's not mine. It's an organization's, it's the country's knowledge. So how do we retain that knowledge? And how many people that have participated in the development programs have actually implemented the acquired knowledge? Because of that needs to be monitored. So we must not be short-sighted in implementing programs. However, we are not monitoring what is the return on the investment that we've put in by sending people to go and acquire the international skills. So one of the important things is that we also need to share and upskill other people that are around us, and we retain the knowledge so that we can use it again in future. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Molokadi. In your presentation, you spoke about international programs and shared some success stories, which is really great to be able to put the learning into perspective. What is the one challenge with the application of acquired knowledge that you think is an actual, the one thing that we need to concentrate on?
There is a perceived issue that some of the development programs are implemented for the purpose of statistics, to say these are the numbers of people that we've sent, and not with the intention of applying the knowledge, because you find people returning back from international programs and aggrieved because of whatever they've learned, they are not necessarily applying. That is because of you find that the program is not directly related to the output of the current position that you are sitting with, but although it is good for your own personal career advancement and personal development, so the application of the skills acquired might require that we change current position in the organization, but maybe it's not even the final solution. So there is more than just the hardcore skills that you can learn. Like for instance, one of the success stories that I cannot mention because I do not have consent is that this person went out and actually found an opportunity to engage and do business negotiations. That was not part of the program, but saw an opportunity that this person can bring back into the country and actually apply. One of the learning that might be there is it's a winning business culture, because if you are confined within your own organization, you don't actually get to go out there and see how other people are doing things, and which you can bring back and change yourself. It starts with you, and you spread that change like excellence. If you go out there and you go and visit Japan, you will learn that they've got a culture of excellence. You can come back and bring the culture of excellence, apply it in business, and this will actually have a benefit. So we must not limit ourselves to what I have gone to study, but there is more to learn outside of the box of the program, because a program is boxed, but there's so much more outside of a program that you can come back and actually it can benefit the country. Thank you so much, Nicolette.
Thank you for sharing that. I like that what you say about a culture of excellence that we should be tending towards. As I now like to just again prompt our listeners to answer the poll question that you will see in the live discussion box on the right-hand side of your screen. Let us know what your thinking is, and then you can also see if your thinking is in line with the other listeners that are tuned in. So please take that poll question now. Moving on, I'd like to now touch on localization projects and opportunities that are present. So I'm going to ask Israel to give an opening statement and to talk about the role of youth in the general economy and the energy sector. Over to you, Israel.
Thank you very much, Nicolette, and good afternoon to the panelists. It's a big, huge privilege to be sitting with you guys here. I wish you were actually doing this, sitting together in one room. But under the circumstances, I understand that we cannot all sit in one room. So for me, I listened to the opening remarks from the Deputy President of NIASA, and then he said that, when he joined the nuclear industry, it was quite exciting. And I think we need to bring that back. We need to actually make sure that we can make this nuclear industry very exciting again. So if you move to the next slide, I have actually copied and pasted a statement that was written. Actually, this is an article that is written by one of our nuclear communication practitioner, Ms. Princess Tombeni. If you read through that statement, actually, she sums up everything that actually need to be done in South Africa. She talks about the involvement of young professionals in the value chain of the nuclear industry. And that actually requires that we ensure that we can identify the appropriate talent, and then we can nurture that talent to ensure that we actually can have a successful nuclear program. The sad part is that, the nuclear energy program has been in the pipeline for a very long time. We have actually, in the past, as South Africans, sent people overseas to train them, in various fields. And then we bring those guys back here in South Africa while they are ready to actually go and participate in the nuclear industry. And then the sad part is that the nuclear industry does not actually move forward. We talked about the 9,600 megawatt, which never really happened. We are now talking about the 2,500 megawatt, which we hopefully hope that will happen. Because, me as the chairperson of the South African Nuclear Professional Society, it's very difficult for me to go to schools and varsities and encourage kids to take careers in the nuclear industry, whereas nothing really positive is happening. So it's very good that the Department of Minerals, Resources and Energy has actually issued an RFI on nuclear, and then the RP19 is talking about 2,500 megawatts of electricity. It's also good that we are also talking about other projects like the multi-purpose research reactor. We're talking about the central storage interim facility, as well as the extension of life of Quebec nuclear power station. This project actually are the cornerstone of actually ensuring that the guys that we've sent overseas, the guys that we send to universities, the guys that we send to technicons are actually employed. It can be either directly or indirectly. One of the biggest challenge that we have actually as the youth of this country, we tend to wait for the government to employ us, but we need to actually now look at this also differently. We need to look at the opportunities that are there that we can use actually to take those opportunities and create employment. I was talking to my colleagues the other time. I mean, there was a tender that went out, and I said, but guys, you busy talking to me on a daily basis about employment opportunities. You guys need to join your hands together and find something, do something. You don't have to be the main contender in this process, but you can actually collaborate with other companies that have further experience actually that can actually give you employment. So our job really from our side is to encourage the youth to ensure that they can participate in this career in nuclear, but we cannot really do that without really clear policy and direction from the government. We have to make sure that we can push as the youth of South Africa to actually get the government to actually make decisions on the way forward on nuclear. Can you move to the next slide, please? I'm standing in the first slide. If you look at the nuclear fuel cycle, and I think Meta said that before, the nuclear fuel cycle is actually South Africa. We can mine the uranium, we can mine the uranium, we can convert the uranium, we can fabricate the uranium, we can actually generate electricity. NIASA used to actually have that beneficiation of actually enriching the uranium and providing that as fuel to a nuclear reactor. But why are we not actually pushing for those things? Why are we just following the narrative that, oh, South Africa, we are just at the bottom tip of the continent. We don't have the necessary skills to do this. We have those skills. We have people that actually have done this before, and then they knew nothing like us, but they went overseas, they gathered the knowledge, and then they actually acquired that knowledge, and now they have actually successfully ran Quebec, and they've also successfully ran NIASA. We have actually lost some of those people to NAWA in UAE. If you check about 200 people actually that have commissioned the station in the UAE, it's the guys that come from Quebec Nuclear Power Station. So we have to make sure that, somewhere, somehow, we as the government, we should stop, talking, and then we should actually ensure that we can implement. So obviously, I've actually participated in the nuclear build program. I've participated in, I work at Quebec, so it's very easy for me to talk about the nuclear industry. We know that, the localization possibilities actually, they grow as nuclear industry actually matures. Quebec has been running for more than 30 years. NIASA has been running for more than 50 years. We are planning the 2,500 megawatts of electricity. We should actually somehow now force our way in ensuring that we can actually participate. We know careers from engineering, scientists, we have artisans, we have technicians, we have talked to universities. Northwest University was offering a curriculum in nuclear. We have UCT, which was offering a curriculum in nuclear. We have University of Witwatersrand. We've been to Nelson Mandela University, trying to actually encourage that, they have curriculums that actually fit and help and assist, in actually integrating the young guys that actually have interest in the nuclear industry. So we really need to make sure that now, with the 2,500 megawatt, whether it is small modular reactors, whether it is pressurized water reactors, we have, our guys up front. And then, one thing that I've actually asked the government to do, we held a webinar in July, actually, and I talked to the Deputy Director General of the MRE. I said, when the state-owned entities go and report to the government about the progress they are making on the long-term operation of Quebec and Quebec Nuclear Power Station, the 2,500 megawatts of electricity you're talking about, the multi-purpose reactor, as well the central interim storage facility, you must ask those guys, what are they doing in terms of granting opportunities to the youth? And that's the question that actually somebody needs to account and be accountable to. It shouldn't be just a paper exercise. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Israel. A question for you, and that is what I would like to know more about is the need for new education and career advice. Do you have ideas around what that curricula should look like?
So it could be broad, because I think in the nuclear industry, one of the advantages is that it takes the whole value chain. You work with physicists, so math and science is very important. You work with engineers from mechanical, chemicals, civil engineers are quite important. We have accountants in the nuclear industry, we have lawyers in the nuclear industry, we have cleaners in the nuclear industry. So when you call ourselves professionals, we don't talk about someone who just went to school, because you need someone from the start, from the door, from the security. You have cyber security. Security is now not a job that you say you're just going to hold a bait and there. You can learn security through technology, and do cyber security is an important aspect of the nuclear industry. So those kind of things are quite critical, and our young guys need to understand that a career is not only you becoming an engineer there. You can be anything in the nuclear industry, as long as actually you dedicate yourself and your time, and then somebody else gives you that opportunity, through bursaries, through any other opportunities or initiatives that could be available in the country. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I just want to go back to Meta. There's a question around why do you think there is not much awareness on the benefits of nuclear?
I think in South Africa, we did some work in terms of with the Department of Minerals and Energy. And there was a notion of secrecy around the nuclear industry. And I think that notion of secrecy needs to be taken away. So I think there needs to be a program and a deliberate program from the DMRE, NIASA, and all different stakeholders, whereby education is embedded from high school level, where children are actually taken, for example, to Quebec. A lot of South Africans don't even know that Quebec exists. They don't even know. I mean, I took it upon myself to take my son and his classmates to NIASA. They had never experienced something like that. So I think there needs to be a proper stakeholder engagement plan and a marketing plan that is done by government and properly funded, so that it removes the stigma around nuclear. So before we can talk about all these things around nuclear, I mean, we talk even the 2,500, we keep on going around the IRPs and the RFIs. We never concretize. And I say, the same way as you have for renewable energy, whereby there's advocacy groups where they create awareness. There is what we call you open up at a stadium or whatever. You have nuclear month, you're taking kids from school and everything else. It needs to be deliberate, and it needs to actually be funded through the DMRE, where from a young age, when kids are taught about this clean energy. I mean, when the young girl at the UN started talking about clean energy, people only think clean energy comes from renewable energy source. They don't understand that actually the best clean energy that you can get is actually around nuclear. And young kids, the millennials, are very much aware about climate change and protection of the future. And that conversation needs to start at that level.
Right. Thank you so much for responding to that question. Just a reminder to our listeners that there is a poll question up for them to respond to. The question is, would you advise the youth to explore a career in the nuclear industry? And you have 4 responses there to one to select. The one being, yes, I have done so in the past and I will do so again. Or no, it's not a field I would recommend. Or yes, now that I've heard from the panel of experts. Or you are still unsure, you're not entirely convinced as yet. And I'd like to welcome Des Miller, who has now arrived as well. If you can please come on screen and join the panel. I will now also call on Nhlanhla to give his views around the international experience in terms of localization and nuclear and the role to be played by Black business in South Africa. Nhlanhla.
Afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Nicolette, and thank you, the colleagues. Quite good inputs there. I hold around issues of localization, I hold slightly rock the boat type views because in South Africa, we tended to cautiously try to nest the feelings of others so that, you know, we are seen as this beautiful, constitutionally aware type of a country. And therefore, whenever we embark on contracting, we will shy away from really demanding what will benefit our own people. Therefore, you will find, for example, in other countries like UAE, for example, I mean, they did a sterling program where they pumped many international people, but they ensured that majority of the products that are pushed there, except for Nuclear Island, they are produced, they are bought from there or they are produced from there, or otherwise they flood the jobs that were available for their own people. The sterling example around nuclear, the development and the technological advancement that, you know, everybody knows about is the South Korean experience, where the South Koreans today are a nuclear vendor because they decided on a path that they will allow they will allow the nuclear vendors to come in, but they will push their own agenda in terms of how they want to also transfer the technology into their own people, so that in the end they are able to do it themselves. And now they are doing it themselves. If you then look at the nuclear policy of the nuclear energy policy of South Africa of 2008, it's exactly what South Korea has achieved to date. That key points on that nuclear policy are that South Africa wants to be a nuclear vendor. They want to advocate for nuclear and support the nuclear development across Africa, and a lot of other things that they wanted to build. But that did not happen. Meta alluded to policy after policy and planning after planning and never implementing anything. That's the problem. However, coming back to the issue of business and localization, South Africa has done the homework. If you gonna start looking at the documents that have been produced around how we can localize, which products we can localize, there's quite a lot. NIASA has done a sterling work on this in this space. And there's various submissions done by various nuclear vendors to DTI, DMRE, Treasury on how they can localize. There's even people with MSCs and PhDs around localization, around aspects of localization. Jan van Wyk and Jan van Renselaer from Northwest University, they've done a whole lot of that work. But why then this should be an issue when we now start going on the RFP in South Africa? I think where I come in and say we need to rock the boat is that we require creativity from our government in terms of maximizing on the opportunity to localize. We need from RFP stage to ring fence the scope that will be given to the South Africans. And we need to make sure that the contracting strategy ensures that there's little choice from the nuclear vendors to start trying to get into the space that has been declared that this will be done by South Africa. And we need to ensure that we guarantee the work to those that will like to develop their companies towards being nuclear graded companies. I'm saying this because in 2008, Des will remember, in 2008, from 2005, 2008, there were a lot of companies that went and developed themselves, gearing themselves for the nuclear program that was upcoming. And it's a lot of money. You spend a lot of money in it. And if that program doesn't happen, you lose serious of millions. Serious millions on that particular program. So therefore, if you ring-fence the scope and you start saying you develop around these areas because we've ring-fenced them for you, and companies will be encouraged to do so because when the work happens, at least I can just compete with one or two or joint venture with the local companies, but we'll eventually get the work. I know we will normally when I make these statements, people start thinking about will start saying what could go wrong, how about the guarantees that you're gonna get from the vendors and everything. Guys, crap about that. I'm sorry. We need to selfishly look at the problem that we have. 30% unemployment, 54% of languishing youth, some highly qualified that do not have work. If you don't do something drastic, you're not going to solve this problem. And therefore, we need to muscle ourselves. We need to go there and negotiate like povers, not like puppies anymore. Mega projects like Medupe and Gusile in closing. Mega projects like Medupe and Gusile, we imported a lot of companies to come and run these projects for us. But they came here with very few skilled people, and they look for skills inside South Africa, and they delivered. And South Africans, in majority, delivered on these programs, yet we have said we don't have these skills. Where do they come from? How do Americans and the British people get the South African skills to deliver South African programs when South Africans do not trust the South Africans that they can do it? I thank you.
Thank you for sharing those views, Nhlanhla. We are almost nearing the end of our session, and we have some questions that have come in as well. But before we get to those questions, Des, would you care to share your views on what are the opportunities that we can look forward to?
There we go. It's better. When you refer to the opportunities we can look forward to, that's really the new build program that is being deliberated on by the Department of Energy. You know, kind of just going back into, can South Africa play a meaningful role in this space? Absolutely. We need to be given sufficient time, and we need an enabling environment supported by government. Government's commitment to this program will make a big difference for this industry to participate. And Nhlanhla tapped on it earlier on. A lot of industry players moved. They responded to the call of government, participated, prepared themselves, qualified themselves in the nuclear industry. It cost an absolute fortune to get the program postponed and delayed, to where we are today. In 2007, we could have localized the program by approximately 40%. And what that means for our economy is probably around a 300 billion rand spend on a 9.6 gigawatt program over a period of 10 to 15 years. That would have changed the economy completely. It would just certainly have provided a tremendous amount of electricity on our grid today, had we actually pulled through with that program back then. Today, our engineering, our material supply, our manufacturing, construction sectors have been decimated into a fraction of what it was in 2007. It's going to take quite a lot of work and a lot of restructuring to get our industry back to the quantum that we require to engage in these very large and complex projects. There is big volumes of work. They are complex, they are high value. We need the capacity from our industry to participate with the big international EPCs that are going to be in this project. It's not going to be another Medupi or Rekusile. It's going to be a very controlled environment, building something exactly that has been built before elsewhere a number of times by experienced contractors. So I think we need to start looking at getting ourselves ready. There is a structured process on a gradient on how industry can participate in a nuclear program. Understandably, the barriers to entry are very high. The quality and safety requirements are understandably high. But we've just recently, in lockdown, qualified a new entrant into the nuclear industry for the steam generator replacement project for a level 1 safety class requirement. So it can be done, and it can be done quite quickly. We've got a tremendous amount of experience having done it since 2007 for this industry. We can certainly engage the local industry in a program like this meaningfully, but it needs to be given time and support from the government itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Des. I'd like to pose a question to Molokadi as well as Israel, starting with you, Molokadi. The question is, there seems to be many individuals who have been sent overseas to study nuclear-related programs. Some of these individuals are still unemployed. Are these individuals, more so those who are unemployed, kept on a database so that once the new build program is up and running, these candidates or individuals can be pulled from the database and be offered jobs? Molokadi, you might not have the answer to this, but maybe some views around whether such a database exists and how we can utilize that, as well as Israel, starting with you, Molokadi.
Okay, I'm not aware of such a database, and that's why I'm saying that as WINSA, we are embarking on putting a database together, because that was one of the concerns, that we keep taking people to international programs, not being aware that the particular skill that is required is already available in the country, because there has been people already that has been on those international programs. So that is one of the key concerns that we have, that we have taken the decision to say, as WINSA, we would like to create a database, although our focus is on women, like I said in my presentation, but maybe we need to discuss this further as the nuclear industry players, to say, how do we collaborate to create this inventory and keep it current, so that we can know where to find the specific skills. Thanks, Nicolette.
Thank you. And your views, Israel?
We don't really have the database. I'm not aware of one, but what we've been doing is that we have recently updated our website, and then we actually want to encourage the young guys that actually are looking for opportunities to interact with us through that platform. But we also get quite a lot of requests from these young guys. I mean, they talk to me directly, or they send, you know, there's various platforms that we are using, our national WhatsApp group as well. So, but I think it's going to be critical going forward for us to actually generate that database. And I don't want it to be a Synapse or a WINSA database. I think it should be some sort of an integrated database, which we can work all together to actually, you know, take from it and ensure that we can all use it. Because you might find that I'm aware of someone who's looking for an opportunity, but then that person fits well in a different area where I might not be aware that, you know, he or she fits into that area. So it's going to be very critical between ourselves as nuclear professionals to ensure that when we create a database, it's centralized and it's integrated, and then, you know, all the young guys and, you know, women, men can actually use that database. But the other thing is that we shouldn't really encourage this unemployment. I think with the current project, you know, that are happening now, we really need to find a way to get those guys into the space where they have something to do. It doesn't have to be a full-time employment as well, you know, but it should be something that actually can keep them going and, you know, keep them busy. That's my strong belief. Thanks.
Right. Thank you so much. I just want to also ask Meta, you were talking about that we need coordinated efforts. In terms of such a database, who would you bring on board to perform a coordinated effort? Oh, you're on mute. Meta, you're on mute. Sorry, we can't hear you, Meta. Okay, I'm sorry, we're going to have to move on, but I will definitely get your response, and we can then share that with the audience members at a later date. There is one more question that I would like to pose, and that I'll ask Des and Nhlanhla to respond to. And the question being, there seems to be a lot of discomfort around nuclear energy and its safety, and you find that the public seems to be reluctant to accept this technology. Are these core set programs meant to demystify the perceptions around nuclear technology, particularly as nuclear energy technology? Can I start with you, Des?
Yeah, it's always a debate, but one's got to understand that the nuclear industry isn't on its own creating a lot of disinformation. It certainly is attacked by vested interests in opposing technologies and the very prominent anti-nuclear lobby groups. And they will invent all kinds of things and try and connect nuclear energy to the atomic bombs and so forth, you know, which everybody has an innate fear towards. You know, if you look at the Cold War for the last for that period of 20 odd years or so, it said really you don't have a future, and you try and, you know, bring that culture and that mindset into nuclear energy today, it is going to raise a lot of alarm and caution amongst people. But when people do understand nuclear energy, and it's a hell of an education process, you're going to have to false data strip people from a lot of false data that they've got on the technology. But if they understand, sorry, the weather's moving in over here, but if they understand the nuclear technology and how it is built to protect people from, and the environment from the radioactive sources in nuclear reactors, they are a lot more comfortable with it. Nuclear today is the safest energy in the industry. It's safer than wind, funny enough. And if you just look at the statistics and also compare it per tetrawatt hour produced, nuclear energy is one of the safest technologies by far, because of the performance that it has. A tremendous amount of thought and prevention has gone into making sure that nuclear is safe. It has raised the cost of nuclear together, but you certainly don't want cheap nuclear in your backyard as well. So we need to provide that information around the safety of it and how do we manage waste carefully. You know, Koeberg's waste, for example, all of Koeberg's waste is still in the pools on Koeberg itself. That waste, after running Western Cape's power supplies for the last 35 years, that waste will occupy half a tennis court. So it's not a large volume of waste. And that is now going into a whole process of dry storage where it can be safely stored for another century going forward until such time we make a decision for long-term storage or reprocessing in the future itself. So people need to be educated on the safety issues around nuclear. And that's quite an easy thing to do.
Thank you so much. Very quickly, can we get a response from you, Nhlanhla, before we close off?
Yeah, Des has covered the main aspects and what are the causes. However, I think what Meta also highlighted earlier is that the issue of exposure from early age for our kids or learners to start understanding the nuclear, how safe, how it works and all of that. And furthermore, you cannot achieve a good exposure and understanding if your footprint is too small. We need to get more nuclear plants on the ground across the country so that everybody can just look at it and see how innocent nuclear plants are. No smoke, nothing, very clean. You can eat inside the nuclear island. And also, maybe unfortunately, I'm not in the performing arts area. For a change, just make good movies around nuclear. Every time when a nuclear is mentioned, it's either a bomb or somebody being chased carrying a nuclear something and stuff like that, or an accident around the nuclear. We need to also turn this thing around and start maybe having good stories around the nuclear technology. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nhlanhla. I'll now hand over to GP to give the closing statement. Over to you, GP.
Thank you, Nicolette, and thank you all to all the panelists. But one thing I just want to make it clear, for us to transform our economy, we need an energy source that will provide us with reliable and secure electricity that will ensure that we've got industrialization, manufacturing, and then that will be inclusive. You know, that will have BBC members participating in the program, that will have stand-up members, WINSA, everyone collectively, BEPA, that will participate in the industry to make sure that this industry can grow. And this industry, it has shown over the world that we can go bigger. I mean, the Koreans have shown us, the French, the Russians, the Chinese. So we have learned from international aspects that nuclear can be of significant contribution to the development of the economy. So I would like to thank you, ESI Africa, for hosting us for the last 5 series of webinars. For all the participants, including all the attendees, we'd like to thank you as NIASA. We want to system from now to start to have more international participants to talk about their experience, to share with us, to say, how can we make African South African companies be accredited, be part of the supply chain, not only South Africa, but globally, so that they can also participate on tendering globally and then opening up more work opportunities for South Africans. I mean, we cannot talk about 800 possibilities of jobs. We must talk about real jobs. We have lost 2.2 million jobs. And for us to regain that, we significantly think that nuclear will have a massive contribution, not only during construction, but also during operation of the MPR, the CSIF, including Koeberg life extension to 2.5 megawatt, the profit of coal power station using PMR or whatever small modular reactor. That will ensure that we have not only jobs, but sustainable careers. I mean, we need careers, not to be hired today and tomorrow you're out. Like me to be hired for the past 15 years, I've been enjoying the nuclear industry. So let us make it possible for all the South African population. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, GP, for that message from NIASA. Listeners, I trust you have found this discussion on localization and job creation insightful. And so on behalf of NIASA and ESI Africa, I would like to thank our panelists for their time online with us and sharing their expertise. Listeners, please stay safe, keep well, and goodbye for now. Thank you all.
Bye-bye, colleagues. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you.